It's Wednesday, September 2nd, 2009, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville. Produced and distributed by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C., this is your NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. Welcome to the most popular podcast regarding marijuana in all of America and all the world, featuring interviews with scientists, politicians, doctors, prohibition policy activists, regular cannabis consumers, musicians, and NORML staff and NORML's board of directors, along with music and comedy no other podcast can offer. You can always find out more about our show at our website, stash.normal.org, and continue the education and conversation on our blog as well. We're ending marijuana prohibition with education, one listener at a time. The podcasting and blogging technology for the NORML Daily Audio Stash is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. For your professional web design needs, visit redaphid.com. Good day, Stashers, and welcome to the podcast. I want to thank all of you for making the NORML Daily Audio Stash the source for daily news, interviews, and music for the cannabis community. And I want to remind you all that this is a group effort. It's all because of you that we're able to make this possible. The Stash is supported by advertisers and listener donations, and a lot of the content comes about through the contributions of you folks. A lot of you hang out at the Stash blog at stash.normal.org and provide links to the various stories that come up throughout the day. That helps me a whole lot, saves me the time from Googling them myself. And we have a bullpen of front-page writers who from time to time take the initiative to write their own pieces for publication on the Stash. This week you've been lucky to read the post by one Mississippi Hippie. Not Mississippi, Mississippi. But Mississippi Hippie has been putting forth a 3-part series called So You Want to Be a Marijuana Law Activist, and it's got some great tips for those of you who are wanting to know how you can make a difference in ending adult marijuana prohibition. I highly recommend you read them. They're at stash.normal.org.
It only comes twice a day, but I don't care. It's 420 somewhere.
Time to check the NORML calendar of events available at norml.org/calendar. Thursday, September 3rd at 6:40 a.m. Pacific Time, Paul Armentano, NORML's deputy director, will be appearing on Mancow's syndicated morning talk show. Check that out at www.mancow.com for more information. Philly NORML is having their open meeting Thursday, September 3rd at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time at 4722 Baltimore Avenue in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the A Space. Check the calendar for more details. And Friday, September 4th, a live episode of Cannabis Common Sense live on the internet at ustream.tv or on your local cable access station for those of you in Portland, Denver, Seattle, Medford, and some locations in Michigan. The show features Paul Stanford from the Campaign for the Regulation and Restoration of Hemp and the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, as well as Oregon NORML and NORML board member Madeline Martinez and myself. So check it out. It's live call-in. You can dial 503-288-4448 to get involved with the show. To get Cannabis Common Sense on your local cable access outlet, send me an email at stash@normal.org. It's a NORML shout-out. Today's shout-out goes to everyone I've been shouting out to for the past 2 or 3 weeks. If you've been replying to my shout-outs and haven't heard a reply back from me, I apologize. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just hella busy. What with the NORML National Conference, Portland Hemp Stock, Boston Freedom Rally, Great Midwest Harvest Festival, a speaking tour of Florida in October, presentations I have to do for the conference, and the live talk radio show on top of chapter outreach and producing the Stash. Well, I'm quite busy, so hang tight, be patient, and we'll be back in touch. Now, coming up on today's Daily Audio Stash, we begin with your hemp headlines and a look at the state of Ohio, where they're spending close to $500,000 annually to eradicate marijuana plants, while other state programs suffer massive budget cuts. We take a detailed look at the state of Oregon and a recent piece of yellow journalism reefer madness that it tries to set the frame that medical marijuana is out of control in the Beaver State. And we bring a stupid stoner story to you about grass for gas. In our daily Toker Tunes brought to you by MarijuanaMusicAwards.com, it's Reggae Wednesday. Today we feature DJ Lanton and his song Gimme Da Herb. For our Cannabis Science segment, we're going back to the vaults to speak with Dr. Mitch Earlywine shortly after 4:20 and a discussion on marijuana and aggression. And I'll give you the latest updates on the pledges for the El Jefe Hot Wings eating contest last Saturday. All that and more coming up on your NORML Daily Audio Stash.
Hello, I'm Paul Stanford from the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, or THCF. Medical marijuana is legal in 13 states today, and THCF has clinics in 8 of those states. Our doctors help qualified patients obtain an authorization for medical marijuana in their state. Patients are eligible for medical marijuana with a history of either severe chronic pain and or nausea, cancer, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis, glaucoma, seizure disorders like epilepsy, chronic muscle spasms such as multiple sclerosis or asthma, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and gastrointestinal disorders like IBS or Crohn's disease. If you or someone you know has one of these conditions, our doctors will help you obtain a permit for medical marijuana. THCF Medical Clinics has offices in Washington State, Oregon, California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Montana, and now Michigan. Call 1-800-723-0188 or go to the web at hemp.org or 1-800-723-0188.
Now it's time to take a look at the latest stories about marijuana from news organizations across America and around the world in our NORML Daily Audio Stash, Hemp Headlines. During budget crisis, Ohio spends $360,000 to $480,000 ripping up marijuana. From the Columbus Dispatch, Meigs County, Ohio. State Highway Patrol Sergeant Dick Meadows and Captain Paul Pride went down a gully, crossed a creek, and rode up a steep hill. When their all-terrain vehicles could no longer navigate the terrain, they pushed their way through briars so thick that thorns snagged even the smallest patches of their uncovered skin. They yanked out about 20 plants, most about 5 feet tall. This is how they roll. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation's Marijuana Eradication Unit, a part of the Attorney General's Office. Using $360,000 to $480,000 in earmarked federal funds each year to pay for the helicopter, overtime, and related costs, 4 state drug agents and any local law enforcement officers they can enlist spend nearly every weekday all summer scouring Ohio's countryside for marijuana plants. In other news from the state of Ohio, Cleveland.com. While Senate Republican leaders weren't giving up details, other sources said deep cuts to the Department of Development and an early childhood developmental program, Help Me Grow, were among the trims floated. A healthcare expansion sought by Governor Strickland, a Democrat, to cover 110,000 Ohioans through various moves, including raising the age of dependency to 29, was also being discussed as an area to cut. AmericanLibraries.com. Public libraries throughout Ohio have altered their landing pages to alert patrons about Governor Ted Strickland's draconian June 19th proposal to slash a total of $227.3 million over the next 2 years from the state's public library fund. SaveOhioHistory.com. 1986 was the last time the state of Ohio invested less than $8 million in the Ohio Historical Society. Nevertheless, Governor Strickland's new fiscal year 2010 and 11 budget framework, unveiled late Friday, June 19th, would reduce the state budget for the society from $13.5 million in 2008 to as little as $7.5 million annually each of the next 2 years, a reduction of 45%. We know that less than $500,000 spent on a helicopter for pulling weeds won't completely save the Historical Society, libraries, or early childhood developmental programs, but it would pay the salaries of about 10 teachers. Regardless, at least the money is well spent locking up criminal weed growers, right? Few people are prosecuted for what authorities find, said Robert Beagle, the sheriff of Meigs County, which by far is Ohio's most pot-prolific county. He knows that cannabis blankets his Appalachian hills, and he is grateful for the state's help in removing it. But there isn't enough time, money, or manpower to charge those responsible. Quote, "A lot of times we know who it belongs to," said Beagle, who oversees a county where the median household income is about $32,000 and last month's unemployment rate was 16.7%. But knowing it and proving it are two entirely different things, end quote. Okay, so we can't lock up the weed growers, but at least these efforts are keeping marijuana away from the kids of Ohio, right? Ohio Youth Risk Behavior Survey. The trend of students who used marijuana in the past 30 days shows the overall percentage has not changed significantly over time from 1993 to 2007. Well, even if we lose the libraries, historical society, and special needs programs, and even if the past 14 years of eradication efforts haven't kept 1 out of 5 Ohio teenagers from smoking pot, at least these law enforcement officers are making some overtime getting out in the country for a nice sunny weekend. It's not like they have anything else to attend to in Ohio. Dayton Daily News. The city's 4th homicide in 6 days prompted Police Chief Richard Beal on Friday, August 21st, to ask the community to rally behind his department and find those responsible for the recent killings. The barrage that included 9 shootings in those 6 days has irked Beal, who said he is taking the crime wave, quote, personally. The city's 30 homicides are as many as this time last year, but come 9 months into Beal's community initiative to reduce gun violence program. ONN-TV, Cincinnati. According to a Cincinnati Enquirer analysis, Hamilton County's inmate population is growing at a steady pace, and with the county's Queensgate jail closed, some residents worry about a crime wave. County officials decided to shut down the facility because of budget cuts. That means limited jail space and possibly more criminals out on the streets. I know the unemployment rate in Ohio is huge, especially for an ex-con, but maybe with some luck they can get a job tending an outdoor marijuana grow in the Appalachian Hills.
Marijuana is an addictive drug which produces in its users insanity, criminality, and death.
Marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind.
If the hideous monster Frankenstein came face to face with the monster of marijuana, he would drop dead from fright.
Medical marijuana foes claiming, quote, negative repercussions, abuse, end quote, in Multnomah County, Oregon. From the Gresham Outlook.
Since the passage of the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act in 1998, the number of Oregonians with medical marijuana cards has soared to more than 20,000. Oregon's per capita rate of authorized medical marijuana cards is 13 times the ratio of medical marijuana cards in California.
Anything sound fishy to you in that last sentence? Can there really be 13 times more medical marijuana patients in Oregon than dispensary-laden California? Let's see. Oregon has a population of about 3.8 million. With 20,000 patients, that's a ratio of 1 to 190. There are 36.8 million people in California, so there would be about 194,000 patients at the Oregon 1 to 190 rate. And if California is 1/13th that number, there are less than 15,000 patients in California. With numbers like those, why wouldn't you just say there are more patients overall in Oregon than California? 20,000 versus 15,000. Because it's not patients, It's authorized medical marijuana card holders. What this sloppy journalist isn't telling you is that in order to get medical marijuana in Oregon, you are required by law to register with the state and get a card. But in California, you only need a doctor's recommendation. There is no statewide card registry, and the voluntary registry cards you get in California are administered on a county-by-county basis. There are hundreds of thousands of medical marijuana patients in California. They just don't have to get cards. Let's see what else I can tear apart in this piece of scaremongering yellow journalism.
Deputy Adam Swale of the Multnomah County Sheriff's Special Investigations Unit said medical marijuana cards are being used as a front for illegal operations. Because cardholders often need someone to grow their marijuana, formerly illegal growers now have a get-out-of-jail-free card. Swale said because of the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act's privacy restrictions, it's difficult to determine how much marijuana is legally allowed at grow sites. If a caregiver only grows for one patient and is holding 24 ounces, police would have to go to the patient's house to make sure the caregiver isn't holding more than legally allowed.
So, Deputy Swale is overwrought because he might find a caregiving grower with 1.5 pounds of weed and would never know if the patient wasn't also holding 1.5 pounds of weed. These people might have 3 pounds of weed when they're only allowed 1.5 pounds. Oh, the humanity! Here, I'll make it easy, Deputy. Since Oregon law, ORS 475.320, paragraph 2, section C, allows a grower to provide for no more than 4 patients concurrently, no grow site should ever have more than 6 pounds. Below 6 pounds, just assume it's medical and it's legit. Because the real trafficker drug kingpin types aren't messing around with 6 pounds of marijuana.
The Drug Enforcement Agency estimates that one large marijuana plant can yield in excess of 4 pounds of dried marijuana, and 1 pound alone can be sold on the street for $4,000, making a grow site an easy target for criminals.
Who's growing these 4-pound plants? The great majority of medical marijuana growing in Oregon is done indoors, and court-certified expert Chris Conrad testifies that the average indoor plant produces 4 to 6 ounces, not 64 ounces.
Quote, "What about the guy who can't grow or doesn't have any money?" Deputy Swale said. "He's going to go out and rob the guy with the grow." End quote.
Marijuana is not heroin, Deputy. Nobody without money or weed gets the reefer Jones so bad that he has to go rob the guy with the grow. Criminals rob the medical marijuana patients because prohibition makes plant material worth more than palladium.
Growers are more likely to arm themselves than call the police to report a theft if they are growing more than they should, he added. Quote, "You're going to call the police because you shot someone who tried to rob your illegal grow? No." End quote, Swale said.
Exactly our point, Deputy. If someone hops your fence to steal your corn or cucumbers, or breaks into your home to steal your prize indoor tomatoes, you can call the police because they are legal. Of course, nobody steals home garden corn or cucumbers or tomatoes because they are very cheap and people can buy or grow their own. Prohibition makes it difficult to buy or grow marijuana and makes it lucrative enough to take the risk of stealing.
Attorney Paula Barron of Barron Liebman Attorneys joined the conversation to explain the legal jam employers are left in when dealing with medical marijuana in the workplace. Where California allows employers to fire medical marijuana users, nothing in the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act or Oregon law legally protects employers' right to terminate or not hire authorized users of medical marijuana, Barron said.
Oregon law, however, which follows the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act, legally prevents employers from terminating or not hiring authorized users of any other medication, or even asking them what medications they may be taking. It would be illegal to ask the bulldozer driver you're hiring if he has a prescription for Vicodin, but you can legally make him pee to prove he's not using his doctor-recommended medical marijuana at night, at home, after work, so he can sleep, even though that's legal in Oregon because pot is federally illegal.
Quote, marijuana is the only drug I can think of where you can self-medicate, end quote, Deputy Swale said. Authorized users are often told to, quote, smoke it until they feel better, end quote, with no calibrated dosage, which can be dangerous if the person holds a position in society that makes them responsible for others or operates heavy machinery, Barron said.
The reason aspirin, acetaminophen, cough syrup, laxatives, diet pills, antihistamines, and naproxen have these calibrated dosages is because if they take them until they feel better and they accidentally take too much, they can become injured or die. And those are just a few of the many medical drugs I can think of, not to mention alcohol, nicotine, guarana, taurine, and caffeine used non-medically, where you, quote, can self-medicate, end quote, and overdose can kill you. Unlike medical marijuana.
Stupid stoner stories.
As a public service, NORML reminds you that smoking marijuana will not make one stupid. However, some stupid people do smoke marijuana. Don't be one of those stoners that make the rest of us look bad. Learn your lesson from today's
Stupid stoner story.
Maryland man busted in grass for gas transaction. From my Fox, D.C.
Frederick, Maryland. Authorities in Frederick County, Maryland said a 52-year-old man was arrested after he allegedly tried to pay for gas with marijuana instead of cash. Frederick County Sheriff's deputies say it happened at the Classic Fuel Store on Old National Pike in Newmarket, Maryland on Sunday afternoon around 3 p.m. They say 52-year-old James T. Hart of Frederick offered the store clerk marijuana in lieu of cash to pay for his gas. The store employee refused and immediately called deputies to investigate. When they arrived, authorities found what they believed to be cocaine, marijuana, and oxycodone in his possession.
You don't trade marijuana for gasoline for your own car. You trade it for a ride when you're hitchhiking. Ass, cash, gas, or grass. Nobody rides for free. NORMLCon 2009. Yes, We Cannabis. September 24th through 26th, 2009 in San Francisco, California.
The war on drugs has been a utter failure, and I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws.
President Obama was right in 2004, and 5 years later, the American people agree.
As regards to legalization, it's not in the president's vocabulary, and it's not in mine.
We're working hard to make sure legalization is in the drug czar's vocabulary.
Whether legalizing marijuana would improve the economy, the answer is no. I don't think that is a good strategy.
There's nothing funny about legalization, Mr. President. Registration, sponsorships, and vending information is available at NORML.org or by calling 888-67-NORML. The battle to end adult marijuana prohibition can sometimes seem endlessly frustrating and impossible to overcome. One way we bond as a community and draw strength to continue is by rejuvenating our spirit through art and music. The Marijuana Music Awards exist to recognize those sonic artists in all genres of music who feature a ganja-friendly message to motivate and inspire all the cannabis community. Our daily Toker tunes, brought to you by MarijuanaMusicAwards.com, feature the finest in blues, rock, jazz, hip-hop, rap, reggae, country, bluegrass, and dance music to enhance that 420 feeling while promoting the message of reform. To donate your song for possible use on the stash, enter it in the next Marijuana Music Awards contest today. It's Reggae Wednesday, and we're listening to Gimme the Herb by popular artist DJ Lanton from the UK. Originally from Kingston, Jamaica, Lanton has won numerous competitions and worked with producers and artists from around the world. Lanton writes his own material and has developed a distinctive and versatile style of music. To catch the latest about Lanton, check out myspace.com/RealDJLanton. And enjoy Gimme the Herb by DJ Lanton.
Everybody eating after need. Yeah, man, free up the weed.
The marijuana, the parks. You don't know the Lantern, you don't know Anthony Q.
Yeah.
All everybody is local, international. Global. Herb ladies.
All across the world.
Herb babies.
Free up the ganja now. Yeah. We love we ganja. Yes, we love it bad. We love sensimania. When we not have it, we sad. We love we ganja. Yes, we love it bad. We love sensimania. When we not have it, we sad. And we do is that let me roll it up. Go pass with the skip and let me smoke it up. Half enough. Don't one little spliff is not enough. The road boy them love it, them smoke it up. The girls them love it, them blaze it up. Ants them love it, them eat it up. Say 1 pound of weed is not enough.
Lantern say, give me the herb, just give me the herb, just give me the ganja. Just give me the herb, just give me that good sense of mean, yeah. Just give me the herb, just give me the herb, just give me the ganja. The marijuana from Jamaica. Me go so then, I'm gonna roll it up in a Marisla paper. If it's not done, I'm gonna use all skin paper, yeah. Just give me the beja, make me blaze all the jalwa, the kiki, I get ganja. Me go so.
We love we ganja. Yes, we love it bad. We love sensimania. Jamaicans love it with sad. We love we ganja. Yes, we love it bad. We love sensimania. When we love it with sad.
Good for you, and the herb good for me, and the herb good for she and the old lady. Good for cancer, good for asthma, good for HIV. Just give me the herb and make me set me mind free. Me go so then, give me the herb, just give me the herb, just give me the ganja. Just give me the herb, just give me that good sense of me, yeah. Give me the herb, just give me the herb, just give me the ganja. Now go blend that with no cigarette, rub and that title and raw.
We love we ganja. Yes, we love it bad. We love sensimania. When we no have it, we sad. Jamaican love them ganja. Yes, we love it bad. We love sensimania. When we no have it, we sad. Don't want me the whistle, let me roll it up. Don't pass me the script, let me blaze it up. Me coughing up. No one liquor's clip is not enough.
This verse is for all them herbalists out there who are cultivate. Babylon fly down with them captors, said them want to eradicate. With them guns and ammunition, said them come to dominate. But none of them will never live long enough to see their right face. Cause them want this very herb and make me hold on that place. Hey, yo, all of the herbalists.
We love, we ganja so bad, yeah. We love, we ganja.
Marijuana.
Yes, we love it bad. We love sensimania. When we know have it, we sad. All across the world, them love the ganja. Yes, them love it bad. We love sensimania. When we know have it, we sad. No one made the whistle, let me roll it up. Don't pass me the stiff and let me blaze it up. Some coughing up. But one little slip is not enough.
Give me the herb, just give me the ganja. Give me the herb, just give me the ganja. Give me the herb, just give me the herb, just give me the ganja. Now go blend that with nothing of it, we are going that title and God.
We love it bad. Yes, we love it bad.
So bad.
We love sensimania.
Tell them, Mr. Q.
Have you considered medical marijuana? Double-blind, peer-reviewed studies have found cannabinoid therapies to be successful in treating the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease, brain cancers, chronic pain, diabetes mellitus, dystonia, fibromyalgia, GI disorders, hepatitis C, HIV/AIDS, hypertension, incontinence, MRSA, multiple sclerosis, osteoporosis, pruritus, rheumatoid arthritis, sleep apnea, and Tourette's syndrome, as well as anecdotal evidence suggesting relief from anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress, plus reduction in the need for narcotic painkillers. Side effects of medical marijuana can include euphoria, relaxation, anxiety, panic reactions, paranoia, tachycardia, dry eyes, dry mouth, concentration and reaction time impairment, appetite increase, and in 37 states, arrest and incarceration. But medical marijuana is non-toxic and cannot cause overdose. Medical marijuana. It's not for everyone, but ask your doctor if medical marijuana may be right for you. Who is telling you the truth about marijuana? The government? Scientists? Doctors? Which claims are scientifically valid and which claims are reefer madness? Every Wednesday we separate the stems of propaganda from the buds of truth with NORML's look at
Cannabis science.
Dr. Earlywine, thanks for joining us again today.
Oh, it's a pleasure being on the show.
Well, we had all sorts of 420 celebrations that took place last weekend. Anything take place up there at the university?
Oh, in fact, there were all kinds of underground events as well as some more formal celebrations of 420. It was a real pleasure to see what a big weekend it was here.
Yeah, as I was looking through them, there was, I guess the University of Colorado has the real big one where they have about 10,000 people show up for that one. And no arrests. I was reading a lot of these reports, and it seems to be that the police are fairly easygoing on the people celebrating 420.
I even saw quite a bit of television coverage covering that same idea, that essentially this is a time when folks know that nobody's really out there to do anything but make a simple statement. There's no risk for aggression or hostility or outrageous dealing of hard drugs or anything like that, that this was really an event that should become something that is a good sign for things to come.
Well, speaking of that, we were looking at this story that came out of the Chicago Tribune. There was it seemed in a lot of newspapers, and like you said, on television, I saw this on MSNBC, where they talked about 420 being a cultural touchstone and a new kind of stoner holiday. And the Tribune put out this thing called the 10 Things You Didn't Know About Pot. And as a typical top 10 list about things like, what Billy Carter, the president's, Jimmy Carter's brother, once said about pot, or jazz musicians using pot, and so on. But number 2 here I thought was quite interesting. You were speaking of aggression, and I'll just read this number 2 one. It says, marijuana is known for its mellowing effect, but it has fueled many warriors in history. The word assassin is believed to come from the hashish taken a millennium ago by Arab killers called the Hashashin or hashish eaters, though some historians doubt they were under the influence while on their missions. Mexican bandit Pancho Villa's henchmen were pot smokers, and some believe Zulu fighters in South Africa were high on daga, aka marijuana, when they attacked the Boers in the Blood River in 1838. The Zulus lost 3,000 fighters. Talk about a buzzkill. So, any truth to any of that whatsoever?
As it turns out, there's a number of misunderstandings inherent in this one point, and I don't want to rib the Tribune too much because I really like that paper. Some of my college pals work for the Chicago Tribune, and I feel like they're usually quick to give the cannabis movement a very fair shake. But this one issue is one that's near and dear to my heart because I feel like it sends kind of a curious message to folks who don't understand our mission. Marijuana does not cause aggression. And we have literally tons of laboratory evidence to show this now. And there's some confusion about this etymology of assassin that has actually been pretty well cleared up since 1970. Don Casto, when most of our listeners were probably fetuses, published a thing in British Journal of Addiction just walking through how Hassan was this guy in Eastern country at the time who had some very devoted followers who often committed murder in order to help him stay in political power. And some folks think that actually Hashashan is follower of Hassan, somebody who is one of this guy's devotees and who was willing to commit murder for that reason. Another group suggested that maybe they used cannabis to say, look, this is how wonderful things are going to be in heaven for you if you follow this guy. But nobody ever actually said this was something that was going to incite aggression. In fact, Taylor has some data from the mid-1980s where people came in and actually got high and then were provoked by the experimenters. The experimenters did things like take money away from them or take points away from them or do other irritating things, and they still were not as aggressive as the guys who smoked placebo. And Tom Denson, who's now in Australia, one of my students, and I have a paper coming out later this year showing that any link between marijuana use and aggression in people who are marijuana users, as soon as you take out the use of alcohol and hard drugs, that link disappears. And in fact, my lab has shown time and again that alcohol is probably the drug that is most likely to increase aggression of all the drugs known to humankind. So let's sort of keep that in mind when people start spreading these rumors about assassins.
Yeah, I'm glad that you bring all that up. I mean, so many of us know that just anecdotally. I can't think of a more mellow, peaceful, loving group of people than any group of stoners that I've ever been around. You know, the idea that they'd be aggressive just seems to fly in all the face of common sense.
Oh, my friend Jack Cole of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition has said time and again, if police get a call and hear there's a bunch of people drinking and they have to go visit, they're much more apprehensive than if they hear, you got to go look at this bunch of people who've all been smoking marijuana.
Yeah, that's what I've heard from law enforcement as well. Now, another story that I thought we ought to run by you, Dr. Earlywine, since you know so much about these medical studies. This one just came out of the University of California at Davis, and they're publishing this in the Journal of Pain. And apparently this has shown that they're getting significant relief of neuropathic pain from the use of THC. So this just confirms what we've learned in previous studies, correct?
It's beautiful to see this in a separate lab setting, though. So now nobody can say, oh, it's just this one lab that's shown THC has analgesic effects. And we've seen from studies earlier this year that the effects seem to really vary with dose. So folks who say, oh, I tried cannabis and it actually made my pain worse, probably either had not enough or too much and didn't have that correct window. But we now have literally really nice randomized clinical trials where THC and placebo have been compared and the pain reduction has been meaningful and significant. But especially for this neuropathic pain, which is a real hassle and very, very difficult to treat with some of our other standard pain meds. So the opiates don't seem to do particularly well with it. Our standard analgesics like aspirin or ibuprofen and things like that don't seem to do particularly well. So it's reassuring to see that THC can give these folks a chance. And I think it's easy for us, if we're not in pain, to underestimate how debilitating some of this stuff can be. The neuropathic pain is with you day and night. And that makes your sleep messed up, and then suddenly you're irritable the next day, and then, of course, with less sleep, you're more sensitive to your pain, and it's a really horrible downward spiral. But with THC as an opportunity to treat this, you can imagine somebody's quality of life really improves.
Well, yeah, we would hope so. And there's so many patients in the medical marijuana states that are making a benefit out of the use of cannabis for chronic pain. And in just about every state, it's the number one reason why people are getting medical marijuana cards.
It's showing up time and again.
Now, there was one last thing I had noticed that had come across a couple of email exchanges, and this was a study, apparently a pretty new study here by Morgan, and this had to do with taking a look at the opposing actions of THC, which most people will know is the psychoactive component of marijuana, and then another component that doesn't get a lot of play, which is the cannabidiol. And I was wondering if you could just tell folks just a little bit about the differences and what they're finding.
This is an intriguing study, a part of a whole series of investigations about cannabidiol. Cannabidiol seems to be the component of the plant that creates the more mellow aspects. It's been used successfully as a treatment for insomnia. It seems to have some anti-anxiety effects, and it seems to counteract some of the intense, trippy, almost hallucinatory effects of THC. And as you notice, the plant that grows in nature, there's often a really nice balance between cannabidiol and THC. But, different folks for different reasons have bred different strains to have more of one or more of the other. Well, a lot of the folks who are concerned about THC creating these hallucinatory or psychotic-like effects actually would find that if cannabidiol were part of the plant as well, those things are extremely unlikely. This also supports some of the complaints I get from medical users of Marinol who say, they take Marinol and it seems like it ought to work because it's got THC in it, but it's just completely debilitating. They say I'm completely retarded, I can't follow a linear argument, and it's just insane, and then if I lower the dose, I don't get relief of my symptoms. In fact, part of the plant's beauty is it's got the cannabidiol in there with the THC. If the cannabidiol is combating some of the thought distortion that's associated with too much THC, then suddenly they can alleviate their symptoms and still function perfectly well and, have a nice work-filled fulfilling life.
Well, this is another, aspect of prohibition that makes things so difficult is in a regulated and taxed market, we might have a situation where people would be experimenting more with the different balances of the cannabidiol to the THC to create different brands and different effects, I'd imagine.
Well, and in the UK, GW Pharmaceuticals has done just that, and they're finding the extracts that are primarily cannabidiol have very different effects from the ones that have THC and cannabidiol combined.
Well, it's exciting research, and we look forward to getting some more information out of that. We'll keep on top of that. And Dr. Earlywine, thanks again for joining us here on the Daily Audio Stash.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Russ.
Okay, have a good day. Thank you for downloading the NORML Daily Audio Stash, the growing truth about cannabis. We are produced by the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws in Washington, D.C. Our executive producer is Alan St. Pierre. Our deputy director is Paul Armentano. Our webmaster is Brian Judy. And web production is provided by Red Aphid Interactive Media. As always, you can catch up on the latest information about marijuana at www.norml.org. And you can interact and download from our Audio Stash blog at stash.norml.org. For everyone here at NORML, I'm your host, Radical Russ Belville, hoping all your harvests are bountiful and your encounters with law enforcement are non-existent. We leave you today with thanks again for your donations and pledges for the El Jefe Hot Wings eating competition. I've got the donation button in the top right corner at stash.norml.org. If you haven't sent your pledge in, please send it in as quickly as you can. This Saturday is the debut of the show, and that gives me 2 days left to pay a few more bills to get this show promoted the way it deserves to be promoted. I'm looking to get advertisements in all the major magazines, High Times, Cannabis Culture, West Coast Cannabis, and so on, but advertising costs money, and if we want to make this the biggest live talk radio show on the internet, we need to promote it. My eventual goal is to take this radio show from the internet to terrestrial radio. We're going to have some great guests and professional production, and we are going to bring to the world the growing truth about cannabis. Tune in this Saturday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, at live.norml.org. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.